You ready in 3, 2?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Councilman Britt Moore here at City Hall for our meeting of the Finance Committee today, and we do have a full board with us, so we are going to commence our March 28th meeting of Finance, and we'll begin with item 2024-058, and we'll hear from Bobby Fitzjohn, our Financial Services Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee. This is the extension of it's an amendment extending our current Guilford County interlocal agreement on tax collection. It is a 5-year extension through June 30, 2029. It covers property tax collection and municipal lien collection on properties located in Guilford County within the city limits. It was last extended in 2021 for 3 years. In addition to the extension, the collection rate is also increasing from 0.62% to 0.75%. It's sat at 0.62% for about 13 years. So this is their first increase in that in a while. I do want to point out, though, that as our levy grew, the tax collection fee grew as well. So they were receiving increasing dollar amounts every year, but that collection rate remained flat for 13 years. The estimated bill for FY25 for property tax collection for Guilford County is about $525,000. It's about $94,000 more than it would have been at the 0.62% rate, to give you a dollar estimate on what this will cost us extra per year. The county cited increased costs for reappraisal and additional staff needed as a reason for the cost drivers. And this is all municipalities within the county, so it's not High Point specific. Greensboro will be paying the new 0.75% rate, as well as other municipalities located in the county. I have information about the other counties if you all need that, but big picture, we spent $590,000 last year on all 4 counties, collecting about $80.1 million. So it's a pretty small collection fee overall.
Any comments or questions on this?
Councilman Andrew, you answered my question on the increase from 0.62 to 0.75, which is about 8% around inflation. So that's...
Yeah, it's hard to argue against, frankly. And the county compared themselves to other counties across the state. We're not getting a bad deal at 0.75%.
Very good. Thank you.
If there's no other comments or questions, I'll make a motion to approve item 2024-058. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Our next item for consideration is item 2024-084, and we're going to hear from Managing Director Jerron Hollis.
Mr. Chair, members of the Finance Committee, Jerron Hollis, Managing Director. We've got 2 items that we'll make sure we're looking at the One High Point implementation item first. Okay, thank you. So we have an item in front of you that is a consideration for the implementation planning proposal of the One High Point Commission recommendations. A little background: on February 7th of 22, the City Council approved the creation of the commission and to develop the policy recommendations that came with it. The next year and a half included a number of meetings and research groups, and the restorative economic policy recommendations were developed, and those were received in the Commission's final report by the Council in September 18th of 2023. The National Institute of Minority Economic Development, Research Policy, and Impact Center has created a proposal for project management, consulting services, and subject matter expertise related to the implementation of the report findings from that September 2023 report. It is a proposal over the course of 30 months with a total cost of $292,460. The staff recommendation is for council to approve the proposal, budget ordinance, and the appropriate city official and/or employee to be authorized to execute all necessary documents. We have Leah Henry with the National Institute of Minority Economic Development here for any questions that staff can't answer, and we will be glad to entertain any questions at this time. Thank you.
I'll open it up for questions if there are questions for our staff or Ms. Thompson.
I'll start. Councilman Andrew again. So I'm looking at this and reading it and thinking as a project manager, and the timeline and work plan doesn't seem to have attainable matrices. Like, for example, PMMPA will meet with the City of High Point at least monthly. We normally develop a project charter, but we're not going to have benchmarks or timelines until 90 days after this thing is implemented. I don't really see some kind of schedule, because on item 7, it says the PMP will meet regularly with the City Staff Resident Advisory Council as needed to document process, advise on implementation, and report to stakeholders. So if we implement this, how do I know that we're on track? If we're behind schedule or ahead schedule, are we spending more than we should or not? Is this a fixed price? Because again, I see things like consultants on 4. PM will work with relevant department representatives and consultants to create recommendations to incorporate selected policy and recommendations. Does it require further expenditures? Who are our stakeholders? The PM and PA will take the lead in identifying, recruiting, and orienting, community members and stakeholders. If I'm wearing a project management hat, it's vague. Basically, to me, it looks like we're giving you this money, and then afterwards, you'll come up with a timeline, and it seems to be backwards to me. So can we explain why it's like this, and what do we expect at the end of this process?
Yes, Councilman Andrew, one thing, and I'll ask Leah Henry to come up and help with some of that. The process for this, the NIMED group helped us in the facilitation process that led to the policy recommendations that were in the One High Point Commission report. Okay. So the process and the pattern is similar to the support level that they gave us and the development that kind of got us through that 18-month process. So this is consistent with the process that they used to help us through there. So we had a level of comfort with bringing them forward in this capacity. Some of the specifics that you're talking about as far as an end process would follow basically an ongoing dialogue with staff as we develop what those things are. The guiding document is the proposals that are in that policy recommendation document from September. So that is sort of what we're using as the benchmark and the guideline for what we're trying to do. This gets into process, this gets into stakeholders, as you mentioned, and at this point, if there's some other questions, I'd be glad to have Ms. Leah Henry come up and maybe help with some of the others, and I'll be here.
Please come up, Ms. Henry, and allow me to ask forgiveness for mentioning your name as Ms. Thompson.
Oh, no problem.
I made a mistake, so I apologize for that. We appreciate you taking time to be here to speak to the matter.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your questions, and I appreciate, Councilman Andrew, your insightful questions about the nature of the proposal. So as Mr. Hollis said, our concept is in the first 90 days, we will be working very closely with staff to understand what actual policies they have been directed to pursue. There are a number of policies and a number of policy areas that are in the report. We are not assuming that you are going to want to implement them all or implement them all at the same time. So that's going to require some further internal dialogue for the city to decide which things we're going to pursue first. Once we know those things, then we can, so to speak, put some more meat on the bones in terms of the metrics that we are going to use to document the outcomes.
So we're not at a, this was Councilman Moore, we're not at a point with the report and recommendations at this point to start looking at which ones we would entertain to move forward with?
So Councilman Moore, I absolutely think that you are at that point. We are exactly at that point. And so as soon as council directs staff in which policies you want to implement first and to what degree, and some other parameters that you may have in mind, your goals as a council, some other big undertakings of the city, making sure that we're in alignment with your interests and your goals, then we'll begin to actually step out how these policies will be implemented. There was also a question about the stakeholder group. And so my understanding is that there will be a group of citizens and interested parties who will kind of walk with us through this process, who have yet to be identified, and that we might use a process similar to the process that was used for your recently completed, I believe, comprehensive plan to choose those persons. So we don't know who they are yet, but we do know that there has been a desire for there to be some ongoing citizen participation in this process. And that's what that refers to.
Sorry. I had phone trouble coming in. It's working, sorry.
This is Councilman, this is Councilman Holmes. Ms. Henry, I think what we're asking is, Councilman Andrew is asking, and Councilman Moore as well, is that the process of determining impact and prioritizing policy for implementation. You, along with staff, will you support staff in doing that, or are you expecting council to direct staff on that before you engage in the scheduling of the implementation?
The concept is that we would work with city staff and council to whatever degree you would like us to be involved in that decision-making before policies are implemented.
This question is for Jerron. So, Jerron, you feel like there's some questions and some heartburn from some folks about the money and the amount of money. But we have a document and a year-and-a-half process that we're into or more that our staff feels like there needs to be more outside professionalism brought in alongside of our staff to make this continuance and move it forward more efficiently to get to an implementation of what council chooses. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The recommendations that were presented in September identified topical areas. What it didn't do was it didn't go to the level of detail to talk about how to incorporate those, who to bring at the table, what the timelines and processes. So this, which was in the end of that set of recommendations, one of the things that came in the recommendations was that there would be a need for an implementation plan should the council want to move forward with those recommendations. So this provides substance, depth, and detail on what was a list of subject areas that were used from a historical standpoint, kind of showing what those areas of concern are. This implementation process would say, how do we implement those things so that they have the impact that would be desired from leadership?
And we need the professionalism of the outside consultant's experience to help us move that forward.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That would-
Director Hollis, if I could kind of contextualize this a bit, it's very similar to our marketing rebranding initiative. We certainly had an extremely proficient marketing team internally, but we contracted with a municipal marketing group. They have since stayed on, since we've delivered the product, they have since stayed on to help us implement that strategy into the built environment, because they're intimately informed on our brand narrative, and our community in terms of helping us do that and extending the capacity of our marketing team. So I look at this process in a similar fashion. Even though we do have the commission, we do have our staff, NIMED being the company, the organization that helped us to develop the recommendations, feel like they're uniquely suited to help us with the implementation because they understand our community, they understand the report, and they've been working alongside us for the last 2 years. And so very similar to the process that we undertook with Civic Brand in our marketing and branding initiative.
And if I could make a comment, I'm not sure exactly how relevant this is, but I feel like sometimes some of the heartburn is that some folks maybe think that only a certain group of people will benefit. But I know as representative of Ward 3 in High Point that has many underserved areas, it's going to help every High Pointer. It's going to help whites, blacks, Latinos. It's going to help our overall city to increase our tax base, to help alleviate the cycle of poverty. And we are in such a transformational place in our community, and we are rising above it all. And I want everyone to rise above it all. So I think that this work is so important. I know that our staff could really use this professionalism and really kind of raise our bar for everyone. So I'm in full support of this.
So a little bit more detail. So this proposal has 62.5% of the total cost as other direct costs. And when I do a project, my ODCs have to be sort of, detailed. So that's one thing I'm concerned about. And also, the project lead, 0.35 FTE for 60,000 is equivalent of 171,428 a year. Is that normal level of consultant that we generally hire? I mean, that seems to be a little pricey.
The way that this is sort of laid out, it paints a picture of what the projected need is based on those particular subject areas. The level of specificity and the level of particular digging in certain topics, whether it's small business loan pools, whether it's items that deal with housing, takes a certain level of time and expertise. And so this, with the combination of the group's experience with working through the process of the last 18 months, seemed to make sense. If you got questions regarding the particular FTE count, I would ask Aaliyah to come and help sort of explain how they arrived at some of those percentages and breakdowns. But in looking at that and what we were asking them to do in the course of the project over the 30-month period, we did feel comfortable with what was presented. But more scrutiny, more detail as you're asking, I think we're able to provide some answers to those questions with some of what we brought here today. So
I'm trying to think of what I can add to Mr. Hollis's response to that question. I would say, having been both employed with firms that do consulting and an independent consultant, I think that our rates are actually pretty good. So, and it's really a matter of expertise. And so I think the fact that what I bring as the project manager, potential project manager, is 30-plus years of work in economic development, local government, and state government management, my track record of resource development and project management, I think, supports the dollar amount. And I was not clear when you were saying that 62% was...
So currently, the proposal for 292,460, of which 109,800 is labor, which is approximately 37.5% of the total cost, which means that the rest of the project, the 62.5%, 292 is other direct costs, which on this thing says travel expenses, meeting expenses, consultants, et cetera, et cetera. Just so that we're clear that my project management experience is based on the Project Management Institute, PMBOK, body of work, things like that. So that's why when I see ODCs, I usually look for more specificity than, stuff like that. So It just may be the nature of this where we're not generally something tangible. Maybe that's just my background, but those are things that raise my red flag as a project management professional.
I sincerely apologize. One of the things that I did realize yesterday is that that direct labor number was wrong, and it was from a previous version of the proposal that only looked at the first year. And so when I went back and looked at it, the direct labor amount is actually $267,000.
Okay, I was going by the numbers that I had in
Yes.
front of me. That's why I asked the questions.
Right.
So may I have the correct numbers?
So there was an update on the cost proposal that they provided to us, item 5.0, and we've got some extra copies of these that we can get, but if you want to take a look at that. And Madam Clerk can update that information on the documents going forward, but that was something that came in, that correction
Okay.
came in today.
So what is that corrected number?
The number that should be there for that is $267,000. And I think you have something along the lines of 109,000 on the document that you have on section 5.0.
So in section 5.0 of mine, under the paragraph personnel, quote, "Direct labor is the greatest cost of this project, accounting for $109,800. We anticipate that the project manager will devote 35% FTE effort in 2024, 25% effort FTE in 2025 and 26." Yeah, these look different. Nope. Okay, so then that changes things. So, yeah, I was just working with what I've been given, so I'm a numbers guy. That's what I do.
Ms. Henry, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. As it relates, obviously, you have a deep and knowledgeable background in what you do, lots of experience, and obviously worked with us for a while. At the end of this period on the new work, that is when you, along with staff, will be able to come before council and identify specifically the targeted recommendations that we then would consider. And what type of, in the area of reparation work, which is what we're speaking of, what's your background there? Are you working with other municipalities within the state on this? And are those in process, or has anything come to fruition with that?
I am not working with other municipalities in North Carolina on reparations work. I only know of two that have actually really engaged in reparations work, High Point and Asheville. And High Point is actually ahead of Asheville in some ways. What I have done is worked extensively on the kinds of policies and programmatic recommendations that are in the report.
Okay. So this is a new horizon that we're approaching in this arena as to the work we're doing.
Yeah, well, I would say, Councilman Moore, not only new horizon for the state of North Carolina, it's probably a new horizon for the country. In regards to, I just had a meeting this week with a professor from UNC Wilmington. They're extremely interested in the work that we're doing because of their history. The 1898 happened with the government there and the raising of the Wilmington. They're extremely interested in the work that we're doing, the approach that we're taking. California statewide just passed a very similar measure for the entire state when it comes to restorative economic policy. So in terms of where we're breaking ground is having an implementation and eventually a steering committee design that will lead policy implementation. I don't know of another municipality in the country who is as far along as we are. And so it's certainly groundbreaking for the state, and it may be groundbreaking for the country as well.
I like groundbreaking.
Is there any other comments for Ms. Henry or Jerron on this matter? Okay. Hearing none, I will entertain, thank you, Ms. Henry. And Jerron, I know you'll be up for the next one. I'll entertain a motion for approval of item 2024-084.
Motion to approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
In the interest of the numbers, I'm not comfortable the way it's written as right now, so I will entertain a no.
Then that motion passes 3-1. Next item for Jerron is 2024-111.
Mr. Chair, this item regards the video streaming of council meetings. The consideration here is for an upfit to council chambers with video capturing capabilities that would allow streaming of meetings on various platforms to our community and to the public. The council had requested that staff look into the possibility of adding video to stream our council meetings. We've worked with Clark Powell, who's a company we worked with for years that have helped with some of the support technology in the council chamber. And what's in this proposal is the addition of equipment, point tilt zoom cameras that will be in the council chamber, the various controllers that would help with the managing of the meetings from a video standpoint, as well as navigating some of the streaming platforms like Zoom and Teams, having that integration. The quote includes an app that would be customized for HPTV, High Point TV, that would expand the number of households that are able to receive our meetings. The current setup that we have for our council streams is audio only. The process that someone had, if we were able to stream as is now, you would be limited to the cable customers that have, that subscribe. This would actually expand so that as people are using Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Hulu, they would have access to the High Point TV app. So it goes beyond our cable customers, Spectrum cable customers, and would push that out so that more people are able to digitally receive the meetings. The Tech Committee heard this item most recently, and they were, as a part of this, told that the operation of adding the equipment was one thing, but there would also be a request for a full-time position that would be in the upcoming budget. The recommendation from staff is that council consider the proposal from Clark Powell for the equipment upgrades in the amount of $164,758. And this is connected to the budget item that would be an additional salaried employee. And these requests were recommended by the Transparency, Engagement, and Communication Committee. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. Our marketing manager, Ryan Ferguson, is here too for any technical questions that I might not be able to answer.
Sure. Councilman Andrew again. So 2 questions. How is the pay, the level for the specialist position determined, and what will be our recurring costs if we move forward?
Okay. So the cost for the full-time position is equivalent to a communication specialist. So the request item you see there, $99,000, is that's total compensation.
Understood.
So that's everything in. So that would be the level of what a communication specialist staff member that we have on team now.
An existing one. Very good.
That's the standard that we're using for that.
Okay.
From recurring costs that we would have with this would be just like with the equipment that we currently have. We have an internal fund that would help us with equipment upgrades, staffing, support from the vendor for particular equipment issues. So we wouldn't see any additional recurring costs that would go outside of what we're able to handle with what we have is a funding source that comes from the state that allows us to promote broadcasting of meetings. Any city that does broadcasting has that. So we have those funds that we typically use to maintain equipment, whether it's our streaming equipment that we're using now or this equipment in the future.
Okay, what I was looking for, I think you've answered the question. What was going on in my mind is that we have a certain level of technology, we're increasing a certain level of technology, and then there's a delta. So is it 2%, 3%, or whatever? But if you're saying that there are existing funds that are already covering it, then, that basically that's what I was looking for. So, I'm upgrading from, an older vehicle to a newer vehicle, but now the newer vehicle needs more maintenance. I was just looking for that difference, because I understand we're going to make a purchasing cost, and then equipment needs to be maintained. So I was looking to see what we're signing up ourselves for in the future.
Yeah, much of the equipment that we have now, we're expanding. So we'd use the baseline of some of the current infrastructure that we have. So we're essentially adding cameras and expansive technology to what we already have on our audio stream. So
Okay.
we're adding pieces to what we already have.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hollis, I assume that the purchased new equipment would also have warranty factors that would cover any immediate maintenance before that fund would need to be invoked for any type of maintenance coverage.
Yes, warranty for the equipment and service agreements that we have with Clark Powell, who's one of the regional industry leaders on this, would be a part of that. And so we expect that, following the same processes that we do now for equipment upgrades and equipment maintenance, we'd follow that same design.
Sure. And one quick question. Can you just give me a little insight into the utility and the capacity of the new person? How will that benefit and extend the capabilities of the department?
Okay, so with the addition of the staff member, primarily in the context of what we're talking about here, when we go to video streaming a meeting, it's still a public meeting, but it also becomes a production. We'll have cameras that are strategically located, and there'll be back and forth communication that would really connect with council meetings. Something I failed to mention, we'd also need to do an update of our streaming policy. That would be something that I didn't mention, that I mentioned to the tech committee. The person here will also help us, in addition to this, it would help us to expand what we're currently doing now as it relates to gathering data, footage, video support, the kinds of things that we're expanding to do as part of our marketing initiative.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be multiple capacities that this person can support.
I just wanted to make the point that this person just doesn't exist for the production of scheduled meetings, but outside of that, the work scope will be beneficial to other departments, say marketing, branding, other places like that. They'll be able to expand the capacity of, say, Ryan's team and the work that he does as well.
We're hoping to get full use out of this person should they join the team in any capacity, like we always do with any of our staff members.
Excellent. Councilman Andrew, another question. Do we have an idea of our current reach or current audience on the audio stream and what we expect to increase with a video? Are we looking for 10% increase, or, I know it's hard to predict, but I want to know how many people are listening in now on average. I expect to see an increase of that if we make this investment.
I'll ask Ryan to speak to our numbers.
So on average, on average it's about 50 people that are streaming. Some meetings might be 12, some might be 200, depending on what the topic are and depending on what that is. But I think the average is around 50 people that are streaming. Although people love podcasts, and that's kind of going in a different direction, right? Video is always going to increase those. I cannot give you what that increased number would be because I don't know that. But I would say from my standpoint and from what other standpoints are in other cities that already have this implemented, Greensboro has a very large video audience for their meetings, I would assume that that would definitely increase our numbers. People feel more connected if they can see it more than just hear it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
How will this help us as a body and a governance body be more effective and efficient to the average citizen that's living here? I mean, what's it going to bring to the table that we're not already doing? I'm having trouble at this time knowing what we're getting ready to face with the upcoming budget, knowing that we have departments and areas where people probably want increases, where we're already understaffed, where we're short manned and womaned. We make budget amendments all the time, unfortunately, up here, where we're having to outsource work to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're going to create another area of a department. I have no problem. It would be a nice luxury, I guess, to have and enjoy. But since 2010, when I was first elected, I'm having trouble in this economic environment at this time thinking that this is the right time and the right place to move in that direction unless there's something that's going to benefit the masses.
Well, I think prior to COVID, we weren't broadcasting meetings at all.
Right.
We started during COVID because people couldn't get into the facility, and then we kept going with that. Now we have people who are looking at those broadcasts as a way of connecting that they didn't have before. So this is expanding on what we started during COVID, and it's an opportunity to have broader outreach and more interconnectivity with the meetings. By producing these meetings, rather than, if someone goes back 3 months and they want to see what happened on a particular item, with this setup, we can go back and we'll be able to see to the agenda item, to the person, to the speaker. So it becomes a different experience. I don't know, honestly, this will not make the decisions on particular agenda items any different. It's the same deliberation process. Mm-hmm. But what it is doing is it's giving a way of a more interactive, engaging experience. And what we've seen is that it would increase interaction with people actually tuning in to the meetings or referring to the meetings. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's very, very well said. I still, I just have a little trouble with this at this time. There was brought up in the transparency meeting something about, and that's a new committee for us, which I'm on, that, those very same kind of words, but I don't see that. I know Greensboro's got it. I don't know if Winston, some others got it. I still don't see how it's going to make us more effective and efficient.
Councilman Moore, I think for municipalities our size, I think we're the last to not broadcast. I'm not sure if that's true, and that's not necessarily saying as justification of why we should move forward. But I do think in terms of the connection to our constituents, I think we've seen an increased level of engagement just from streaming. And so I think this was something that we heard during the campaign about the transparency, which is why the tech committee was created. Folks wanted to know more about the inner workings of our government. And I think the last two councils have been the most transparent that this city has seen in a while, and I think people appreciate that. And to me, I think this is just the next level of openness and transparency for our city.
Well, I appreciate that as well, and I appreciate the fact that you alluded back to the terms of when you've been on council. I, having been on several previously, don't think I can be directed to any specific where we were not open and transparent about what we were doing. So, anyway.
If I can make a comment.
Sure.
I agree with Councilmember Moore as far as, the equipment and, how much more effective will it make us for just like streaming the actual meetings. But it sounds like to me that this new position will also, because I know that we hear a lot, people don't know what resources are available, but also there's so many people in wards 5 and 6 that don't even know we have a stadium. And we've got so much going on right now that I think getting that word out, and that will help, I know we've got our new economic development director, Peter Bishop, that's doing a great job, and I can see this helping him and all the other departments, bringing folks together and letting them know what's happening in our city, and hopefully, bringing in new businesses and making people want to move here. So I see it as very positive.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 2024-111.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm opposed. No. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Next item is 2024-112. And we're going to hear from Melinda King. Welcome, Melinda. She's with our Public Services Department.
Thank you so much. I'm Melinda King, Assistant Public Services Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the Finance Committee members. Today, we are asking you to consider a proposal that we solicited for debris monitoring services. You may recall 10 years ago this month, we had a large ice storm that took down a significant amount of trees and other damage from the storm itself. And it took months for our staff and others to assist in the cleanup of this storm. So we did have Tetra Tech previously as our monitoring company if by chance we had a storm that we needed to call upon them for. And through the RFP process, we solicited and received applications from 4 other vendors. And in that process, we evaluated through a matrix and determined that they would still be the best fit for us. This would be called upon at the time of a storm, so there is no cost associated with it until the time of the storm itself. And at that time, they would help monitor the amount of debris that's being collected and then facilitate communication with our departments as well as Federal Highways, NCDOT, and FEMA as well. So most likely we would receive FEMA funding that would pay for this at the end, but they would help monitor, do all of the paperwork that we would need to turn in to receive that funding. So we are asking for the approval of this.
Comments, questions?
Councilman Andrews, so just to be clear, there isn't a retainer, it's not an immediate cost to it.
Correct.
Very
That's
good.
correct. So they are basically on standby and waiting for us to call upon them if needed.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second for the approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next item is 2024-114. You picked a good day.
That's right.
You're going to be here a while.
So this is in conjunction with the previous one that you all just approved, and this is for the actual company to come in and assist us with the cleanup itself. So we did a similar process, solicited through an RFP process, 7 different firms submitted. We selected Crowder Golf as the most responsible bidder, and at that time they had already been on call with us as well. So we've never utilized either of these companies, but we do go through yearly training with both of them, and we felt comfortable moving forward again with Crowder Golf. Yet again, this is an on-call situation, only pay at the time of their services being needed, and they would be doing the actual removal of the debris. They have costs broken down into each size of tree, where it's located. There's costs laid out for every single item, and then Tetra Tech would be the one handling all of the paperwork for that.
Comments or questions on this item?
Councilman Andrew, again, same as before, just
Yes,
stand by.
correct. And once again, any funds spent most likely would be covered through FEMA funding as well.
Very good, thank you.
No further comments. I'll make a motion for approval of item 2024-114.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next item, 2024-113.
Okay, this is for the annual resurfacing project that we do. We have approximately $3.3 million set aside this year for that resurfacing. We put out to bid for 15.2 approximate lane miles of resurfacing throughout the city of High Point. There were two contractors that provided bids for this project, and Sharp Brothers was the lowest responsible bidder at that time. And so we are recommending that we move forward with Sharp Brothers as the contractor for the 2024 resurfacing.
You're on,
Oh, did I jump ahead?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mine were out of order. I apologize.
well,
Okay.
no, they got the numbers out of order.
Okay.
but then, you know, so.
All right, so this is also having to do with resurfacing as well.
Right.
So this is for pavement preservation. So it is a methodology used to try and preserve the roadways to give approximately 7 additional years life out of the asphalt so that we don't have to do resurfacing as often. We utilize the report that we are received from a company that goes out and does a pavement condition survey for us. We are actually getting ready to redo that as well. But this is based off of the information from the last report. We will go out and use this methodology to preserve the streets. And there are approximately, there were 2 contractors that submitted. The first contractor was deemed non-responsive. So we did go with the second contractor, Slurry Paving. However, it was only about $100 difference between the 2 bids.
And we're already doing some of this process, are we not?
We did a different type of pavement preservation earlier this year. So we are looking at all different types of methods to see which one works best for us. But yes, this is a different technology than what we did previously.
Okay. So, Councilman Andrews, so since we're on, you said 15.4, but it was the previous one.
Yes,
because
sorry,
this
I
is-
apologize.
this is 21 lane miles.
Yes,
on this
correct.
proposal. Okay.
Yeah,
just
this
what-
is a much larger amount of lane miles because it's a less expensive type of methodology to use. So we're
Okay.
able to do more with less. Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll make a motion for approval of item 2024-113.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Melinda, the next item's 2024-115, but I believe you kind of went through that one. and
Yes,
that's
so I'll
the one
welcome
with
any
Sharp
questions that you
Brothers.
may have on that as well. My apologies.
So this one's the 15.2 mile.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And this is the traditional milling asphalt. And so there will also be some curb and gutter concrete repairs with that as well.
Okay.
Mel, in terms of materials, have you guys seen any relief on material costs?
It typically is in line with gas prices,
gas
so we have not really seen a change, a drastic change.
Drastic change.
But we did have approximately $500,000 left over from last year's resurfacing that we
yeah.
were able to roll into this year.
Good.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for approval of item 2024-115.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Now we're back on number. Next item, 2024-116.
Thank
Hey,
you.
what happened?
I should let her stay up here. She was on a roll.
We
so-
were enjoying, she
I'm
was doing a
sure
great
you were.
job.
Yes, she was.
Okay, we'll hear from Robbie Stone.
All right. Thank you. So this is 116. This is for our Waterview Pump Station. This is to approve a change order number 6 to Baker Underground Incorporated for the final quantities on a Waterview Pump Station. This project was actually brought to council and approved back in May of 2022. We had 5 change orders throughout the project. This here is bringing change order number 6, which is the final adjusting change order, and all the work has now been completed. Funds are available for this project in our current budget, and we're recommending approval to Baker Underground in the amount of $104,121.65 for this change order. That would bring the new total contract amount to $4,280,097.41.
Comments on this?
Yes, Councilman Andrew. So the change order is about 2.5% variance. What threshold do you normally use for change order variances on price?
Ideally for the entire project, 5 to 10% is what we would like to stay within. This project here, There was a large change order that we brought to council, I believe, near the end of 2023, and that was for the replacement of a force main. And that change order was well over $1 million. I think it was like $1.4 million. What happened with that was the project was designed over a decade ago, maybe a couple decades ago. At that time, that force main was not in need of replacement. The project was delayed. Once the project did go to construction at a much later date, and this was in conjunction with the DOT, once it did go to construction at a much later date, that force main was not reviewed at that time. So we had to come back and say that's why this overall project has went from such a small number at the beginning to a large number at the end. It was that very large change order to upgrade to replace that force main.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on this item? Hearing none, I'll make a motion for approval of item 2024-116. Did I skip one? Oh,
No.
we're right.
You're right.
Yeah, there's 116.
All right,
So I'll second it.
all right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next item, Robbie, is 2024-117.
Thank you. So the next two items kind of coincide with each other. This first one is, both of them are related to the East Side Wastewater Treatment Plant, the supervisory control and data acquisition, or the SCADA system upgrades at the plant. This is to enter into a contract or to a task order with Sturgill Engineering, who are on our master agreement list. Sturgill will, as part of this upgrade, they would help to monitor this project for us. Some of the things that they would do would be consisting of conducting a pre-construction meeting, reviewing shop drawings, reviewing and responding to requests for information, reviewing change orders, reviewing pay requests, holding monthly meetings, providing on-site support and coordination, and then providing the record drawings at the end of the project. We do have funds available in our current budget for this, and we're recommending to award this to Sturgill Engineering in the amount of $280,000.
Councilman Andrew again.
Yes, sir.
Cost reimbursable for $280,000. Explain cost reimbursable on that one, please. On page 2.2 of my packet, it says, we propose to execute this project on a cost reimbursable fee for service basis for a limit not to exceed $280.
I cannot answer that right now. Cost reimbursable to me, right, just shooting off the hip here, is going to say that's the proposed total fees for them to come in and administer this entire project installation within the plant there.
Okay.
I will dig into that and provide you an answer before the meeting Monday.
In my world, cost reimbursable means that if I shoot under the 280, then I get less than 280. So it's an incentive for me to spend as much as I can. So I just want to see how it's written.
Great point, so I will definitely dig into that.
Anything else? Good. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 2024-117.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. No, I'm an aye, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Next item, 2024-118.
Okay, so this is also for the SCADA upgrade at the Eastside Wastewater Treatment Plant. This is to award a contract with DSI Innovations for the upgrade of the SCADA. The current SCADA software there at the plant was put in back in the early 2000s. It is just becoming outdated, so replacement hardware has become very obsolete and hard to locate and repair. This project would consist of improvements and upgrades of replacing the existing personal computers throughout the plant, a conversion of the SCADA software, the installation and programming and rewiring of the system, installation of new fiber optic cable in between the PLCs, a modification and uplift of the new server room, and various additional items within the specifications. There were two contractors that originally bid on this, so we couldn't open bids. We had to rebid it. And we reopened those bids on March the 13th. At that time, there were still just two contractors that bid on it. DSI Innovations was the lowest bidder. Funds are available for this current project, and Public Services recommend approval of this contract to DSI Innovations LLC in the amount of $2,278,306.
Councilman Andrew again. If you don't have the answer to this, we can get it later on, but with SCADA in my world, I'm concerned about cybersecurity, so I just want to know if we're handling that.
Yes, so great question. Our SCADA system is internal. It's the lock system, so
Okay.
we can't access it externally. And also, we've been working with our IT group, Adam Ward, on some additional, what additional measures can we put to secure this?
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Good question. Anything else? I'll make a motion to approve item 2024-118.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. You guys got a whole page. And Ms. King, you come back anytime. Next item, 2024-120. We're going to hear from Electric Utilities Director Tyler Barrier. Welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the Finance Committee. The item that I have today is some equipment that we use to pull in and tension wire conductors used by the electric department. Typically, you would see your Fleet Services Director, Kevin Rogers, bring up equipment, but this is specialized equipment that electric only uses. We have a set of three things that we use to pull wire: a pilot line tensioner, a P-line winder, and a underground puller. These are all used in conjunction, whether we're pulling in overhead lines or underground lines into duct banks. The current equipment that we're using is 29 years old, and we've had some trouble with it lately. So this new equipment has a greater capacity to pull in multiple phases at one time, so it should create some efficiencies for us. The old equipment will be taken out of service and surplus, and those dollars will come back to the utility. So we're asking for approval to buy these three pieces of equipment for wire and conductor pulling.
Any comments or questions on this?
Westco, is that, they're local, they're in Kernersville, right? Westco, where's Westco?
Their office in North Carolina is in Clayton.
Clayton.
Yeah, Clayton. It's a Sherman Riley unit. I'm not sure if they're a North Carolina company. That's the manufacturer, but
Okay.
Westco's the distributor. So
So you're going to use those, this to bury those lines down on south end with that grant money we got? So that's
Yes.
what that'll go for?
Affirmative.
Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve item 2024-120.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Tyler. Have a good day. Next item, 2024-121. Mr. Damon Duquesne, Assistant City Manager.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. The item before you, staff is requesting adoption of a resolution that will approve an interlocal agreement with the city of Archdale for inspection services. You can see on Exhibit A, I believe should have just been pulled out. It'll be pulled up momentarily if it's not on your screens. The properties in red straddle the boundary between High Point and Archdale. So in that, High Point is towards the top of the screen, Archdale's towards the bottom, and as you can see, a lot of those structures fall into two, therefore then they fall under two different jurisdictions for inspection services, so fire, building, permitting, and those sorts of things. So recognizing that that can cause some confusion for those property owners and for the inspectors and the agencies that are permitting all these things, I really need to give some big props to Chief Tommy Reed and our building inspections lead, Reggie Hucks, the director, for recognizing this, working with Gil Rand and Randolph counties to come to this agreement where the city would provide those services in return for the appropriate fees paid, so that these property owners only have one governing agency handling those things and avoiding any conflicts between codes. So with that, staff recommends approval and adoption of the resolution, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve item 2024-121.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Thank
Thank you, Damon. Next, we'll hear two items from Transportation Director Greg Venable. First one is 2024-122.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is to approve a task order for a master agreement for professional services with Dewberry Engineers Incorporated for professional engineering and design services related to proposed improvements to South Main Street, Wren Street, Russell Avenue. This is in partnership with the High Point Market Authority. The city has a master services agreement with Dewberry for these services. The city is partnering, as I mentioned before, with High Point Market Authority to construct the improvements in the Southern Showroom District in accordance with the nonprofit organization agreement with the High Point Market Authority that was approved on February 5th of this year. Improvements include, but are not limited to, those bullet point items that you see on your list there. Dewberry will provide these described professional design services for a lump sum fee of $599,030. A budget ordinance amendment appropriating the grant funding is included with this item. The Market Authority received a $9 million grant from the state of North Carolina for these improvements and will reimburse the city via these funds. Staff recommends approval of the task order with Dewberry Engineers Incorporated in the amount of $599,030 and approve a budget ordinance amendment for the allocation of funds for the project and allow appropriate city staff to execute all associated documents. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Councilman Andrew, the 599.30, we're providing it to Dewberry and we'll be reimbursed by the Market Authority.
Correct.
Do you know how long that takes?
I think we're planning on hopefully to have that completed by the end of the year.
Okay.
We'd like to get that done by the end of the year and then go out to bid for the construction services to hopefully start after next market, April of 2025.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve item 2024-122.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next item, 2024-123.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for the approval of the City of High Point and North Carolina Department of Transportation two-party agreement to carry out planning activities and receive fee reimbursement of federal funds. As the lead planning agency for the High Point Metropolitan Planning Organization, the City of High Point has been designated as the administrative entity to coordinate transportation planning for the MPO area and to be a recipient of its share of the planning funds as determined by the policy approved by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. As the LPA, the city is responsible for carrying out the planning funds as dictated in provisions of Title 23 of the United States Code, Section 134, and also Chapter 136 of North Carolina General Statutes. This also includes any subsequent amendments or implementing regulations that's associated with those two laws. In return, the city will request planning funds reimbursement for eligible planning tasks as outlined in the MPO's Unified Planning Work Program. This agreement replaces the existing agreement with no substantial changes to that agreement. There is no budgetary impact. Staff recommends the City Council approve the updated agreement and allow the appropriate city staff and officials to execute all necessary documents. Glad to answer any questions.
Come on, man, you gotta have something.
Not on this one.
Oh, okay. You wanna make you wanna
Yeah.
entertain a motion?
Sure, I'll entertain a motion to,
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve item 2024-123.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item, 2024-125. We're going to hear from Bobby Fitch. John again.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee. Investment income citywide has outpaced our very conservative estimates for this year's budget. Typically, we would allow that to roll into fund balance for a rainy day. However, as we've talked about in prior meetings, the water sewer system continues to see higher replacement repair costs and have had substantial unplanned repairs that they've had to make this year. So we're requesting to appropriate some of that excess investment income for these expenses, just to keep them from having a budget crisis the last 3 months of the year. Yeah. And happy to answer any questions, and Robbie Stone's here to answer any technical questions.
So, Councilman Andrew, investment income, so I assume that we're not allowed to invest in equity since we're, as a municipality, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Limited to GS 15930, which is essentially U.S. Treasuries, really high-grade commercial paper, U.S. agencies, and that's what we stick to. We
Very good,
would never
'cause-
do anything that risky.
No, if we were, we'd be a lot ahead.
We
far
would.
ahead. Thank you.
You know they won't allow that to happen. I do like the fact that you're trying to divert from hitting a budget crisis. So,
Anytime.
Thank you very much. I'll make a motion to approve item 2024-125.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Bobby. Next item is a couple of items. We'll hear from Assistant City Manager Eric Almedo. And the first one is 2024-124.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Temporary flooring is needing at Truist Point Stadium to protect the turf and underground infrastructure from damage while driving vehicles and equipment on the playing field. This is really necessary at this point because with soccer coming, the transition of the field from baseball use to soccer use will require the lowering of the baseball protective net and then the reinstallation of that for lowering for soccer, reinstallation for baseball. So that will require a lift truck to be driven on the playing field next to the stands. So we need this temporary flooring to protect that the turf. These are 4x4 panels, easily movable, lockable, and they will be built for that purpose and then taken up. So project funds are available in the 2024 budget, so we're requesting that DuraTrack be approved as a sole source vendor to purchase this temporary field cover for the stadium in the amount of $83,486. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Andrew, are we using sole source based on expediency?
I'm sorry.
We're using sole source just because it's quick, or?
We're using sole source because this particular product has that patented locking mechanism, which makes it a stronger product when it's laid together. It's also, this is the product that has the best warranty and warranty protection. And it's out of the several products that were demoed, it is the one that was the stadium staff felt most comfortable using.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I'll make a motion for approval of item 2024-124.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Our next item is 2024-135. We'll hear from Manager Almedo again.
Yes, sir. The purpose of this is to allocate funds for nonprofit organizations utilizing the funds that were freed up by the use of the American Rescue Plan Act funds that we received from the federal government. In the spring of 2023, the city conducted a process for nonprofit organizations to submit applications. It was a very popular process. We received 58 applications totaling $18.3 million in requested funds. That was for a total of about $5.3 million that we had remaining. The applications and supporting materials were shared with the members of the Finance Committee, and attached to the agenda item is our funding recommendations totaling $3,073,400.
Any comments here? Questions?
I would like to note that this won't be this would require several recusals due to the state law. So if it's accepted as presented, I think we would have 6 separate votes on this. So we'll need to work out the logistics of that for the Monday meeting.
Okay, so we can vote on this one item here now, but when it comes before, because of the recusals of members, we will do it in separates on Monday, correct?
Yeah, I was going to say this.
No.
Be pulled out of consent agenda.
Well, we'll have several things that are moved to general.
And none of the committee members have conflicts.
There was a question about Visit High Point. Madam Peters you're not a voting member of Visit High Point.
I'm not exactly sure, because I'm a liaison.
We'll track that down Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
But for this purpose, do they need to vote, or is it just?
If it's not going to, then I would just move it, I would suggest perhaps just moving it forward, since it won't be on consent anyway.
Okay. Well, this was a long process. Many people, as Eric just alluded to, is over, 5, 6 times requested amount of money that was available to move. And not an easy process. And I want to thank the finance members for our meeting back and forth individually to get numbers through different communications over time. I know everybody's been under pressure to get this, but coming through the ARPA funding and coming out of COVID, this was all very new. It's very similar to what we do with nonprofit agencies, but we're not used to doing it twice in a year. So, and like always, there are so many great organizations out there that are doing great things that are much needed. And we're happy to support where we can, but we can't be everything to everybody. So we'll move this forward with this recommendation. And that takes us to the end of today's agenda. Is there anything else? Any announcements, any comments or anything? I believe City Hall is going to be closed Friday, is that correct, for Good Friday? A very important holiday for most all of us, I'm sure. And I hope everybody has a good upcoming Easter. And if there's nothing else, am I forgetting any announcements need to be made? Chairman. All right, then we will consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you. You're on.